It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Houston SaberCats Rugby president, JT Onyett. How are you doing today?
Good, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to become the president of a professional sports team?
Yeah, so I think like everybody, I wanted to play sports growing up, and the fact that I was 5'4", 100 pounds in high school, and curveballs kind of stopped that for me there. But then it was, hey, what can I do to stay around the game? What can I do to work in sports? And honestly, I don't think I ever thought that I would be able to make a career out of it. It was always just for me, like, I want to get paid to work in sports at some point in my life. And then once I did that, it just kind of snowballed from there. And I've been lucky and fortunate to be able to stay into it.
What were some of your ventures along the way to get you to become the president for the Houston SaberCats?
So I started in baseball, in minor league baseball, and I worked for the Lake Elsinore Storm, which was a Padres minor league team, and still is a Padres minor league team. I started there, spent 5 years there, and then moved to Sugar Land, Texas, where I worked with the Land Skeeters, and then moved up to the Dallas area to work for the Texas Airhogs. And then this came up, and I had never really heard about rugby before in a large scale. I knew it was a sport, obviously, and I'd heard about Major League Rugby and the Cats, but it just seemed like a great opportunity, and so I jumped at it.
What was your time like with the Lake Erie Storm?
Yeah, so in Lake Elsinore, it was my first job in sports, and really my first real job out of college. So I started there as an intern, and just had the mindset, and was lucky to have a great internship program that allowed me to do everything, not just pigeonhole me into one job. So my job was in the ticket office, but then I could help in other areas as I had time for. After that year, I really had to decide, do I want to work in pro sports? And like I said, I just really wanted to get paid to work in sports at some point. And so I stuck around as the director of tickets, but while still doing other roles and helping out where I could. And then became an assistant GM and spent 1 year there as an assistant GM before moving on.
What was your time like as the assistant GM for them?
Yeah, so when I was an assistant GM, I oversaw the group sales department and the marketing department. But it was such a great staff that really helped each other out in all areas. And it was a very good mix of staff where we had a lot of senior management and leadership that could help us grow, but also a lot of younger people that were eager to help out in any way they can, and really just love the business. And so it was great. A lot of games, obviously, and a lot of events that we did outside of the games, but stuff that you look back on and say, I'm really glad I was a part of it, and I don't know how I was a part of it and how I worked so much.
What was your time like with the Sugar Land Skiers?
I moved there at the end of the 2013 baseball season. My boss in Lake Elsinore, Chris Jones, actually took the job as the GM with the Skeeters. And I was at a point in my career, in my life, I was single, I was 25, and I told him, hey, probably 2 days after he left, I sent him a text and I said, I'm going to come work for you there. We'll figure everything else out when I get there, but I'm coming, right? So, because I just wanted to extend, to learn from him, to experience something different. And in Sugar Land, I really got to oversee a lot more with his guidance still, but you know, take care of the budget, take care of a lot of the day operations type stuff. So really let me learn that kind of it and leading a bigger staff and doing things there because we were independent baseball that we couldn't do in affiliated minor league baseball.
Of course, what was the experience like just picking up and going straight to independent baseball?
Yeah, I mean, there were parts that were different. I mean, the biggest change for me was I'm a Southern California kid. I was born and raised there, had been there for 25 years at that point. And so the idea of moving to the Houston, Texas area, obviously a much different climate, much different everything. You know, so that was a change. And then the switch from affiliated to independent, I mean, you're just a lot freer in independent baseball to do things. For example, Tracy McGrady, you know, a Hall of Fame basketball player, pitched for us there. And you didn't have a major league farm director calling you, telling you, you know, some of the player stuff you had to do and things you couldn't do on the promotional side and that. So ultimately, it's all the same job. It's all the same product that you're marketing. It's fun. It's family atmosphere, but there were some differences.
What was your time like and responsibilities like with the Texas Airhogs?
There I was the president and GM, and so I was the final decision maker, right? And again, taking that job for me was just another step. And I was almost 30 at the time. I had that opportunity come up. At that point, I'm married with a kid, so it was a little harder of a decision. But I knew that, you know, I needed to push myself to try something different and to be the ultimate decision maker. You know, the guy in the seat, if you will, that wears every response or decision that is accountable for everybody. And so that's what that was there. And it was a really small staff. We were an independent team in the American Association that was trying to rebuild. And we were doing so with a very small staff. So it was a lot of work. It was a lot of, you know, getting out in the community and a lot of stuff that I had learned from other teams that I've been with, but really then putting into action with, like I said, a small staff. And we just had to grind it every day.
What was the transition like from you for going from baseball to rugby?
That's a good question because it's probably been a bigger transition than I thought. You know, at first it was in my mind, you know, hey, sports is sports, right? And ultimately we're selling the product of a fun environment, family fun, atmosphere, come and enjoy a night. But the biggest difference here is we are Major League Rugby compared to minor league baseball. So the results on the field matter more. You're dealing with more veteran professional athletes than you would in the minors. And, you know, for me, it's been learning the rules. It's been learning all of that stuff because, you know, the marketing, while different, essentially is the same. Selling tickets, selling sponsorships, so that is essentially still the same. But you got to know the product you're selling. And part of that product is the on the field and the rules and all that stuff. So it's been a transition to learn that.
What are some of the things that you've done as the president for Houston SaberCats?
I mean, I think as a staff in total, we've taken a stadium that was getting finished when I started here. You know, the ownership group that were here before me built a beautiful stadium here, Viva Stadium, and it had just finished the build when I got here, which was a great time basically to say, look, we can do more than just rugby. We can bring in events. We can, you know, make this place used a lot more times than just 10 times a year during your rugby season. And so, you know, we've done that. We've also really tried to revitalize the game day atmosphere and focus less on what's happening on the field, which obviously is important, like I said, and you have a lot of fans that are here for that. But we're also trying to introduce the game to people. And so to do that, sometimes you need to do different things. And post-game fireworks and more of the family stuff, music during the games, little kids playing before our game, to just give people a different reason to come out to the game, let them experience rugby for the first time. And then we believe that the fast pace of the sport, just the overall environment they'll fall in love with the game and they'll continue to come back. But we've worked really hard to get people out for the first time and make sure they have a great time while they're here their first time.
What was the transition like for you from going from like 60 to 90 games in baseball to, you said you only have like 10 games or so in rugby? What was that transition like?
So it's twofold. I mean, the easy answer on that anybody not lying would tell you is, hey, it's a lot more nights at home, right? And so it bodes well for a family. The hard part about that is in baseball, we knew that if we have 70 home games, if something goes wrong one night, if you have bad weather one night, if a promotion just doesn't work, I've got 69 other times to try something and 69 other times to get a crowd out to games. Where here, we have 8 regular season home games, which means if something goes wrong, if we don't get the crowd that we want, if it sits with you longer, first of all, because you don't play next week and that might be on the road. So you've got 2 weeks to just think about what went wrong. But also you lost 12.5% of your season in one game. So that's the negative of only having that many games is, every game matters a lot more, both on the field, but also in the stands and in the ticket booth and all of that.
What is a typical game day like, of course, before COVID, as the president of the Houston SaberCats?
So all of our staff, our game day starts, the first person's here at probably 11 a.m. or noon. And everyone else gets here between then and 2 or 3 o'clock. And on our practice fields, which we have 2 practice fields right next to our stadium, we'll have youth rugby or men's club rugby going on. And so I'm here for that, basically just making sure that everything's going smoothly, right? And making sure that as a whole, we are ready for everything going on that night while also operating the things that are going on. And then once gates open, it's, saying hi to fans, seeing our same ticket holders that come in, entertaining clients, but also just making sure no 2 games are ever the same, right? It's a live event, so you never know what's going to happen. So it's just reacting and trying to get ahead of things too, that might happen. And then when something does happen, for instance, 2 weekends ago, I happened to be in the ticket office and our ticket system crashed. And so we knew we still had internet, but our ticket system had crashed. So between the ticket director and myself, we just said, hey, let's sell tickets on Square. We can get some money in. We can handwrite a ticket for somebody. It gets them in the gate. We don't have to turn them away. We don't have to let them in for free. And that can get us through until the system comes back. And so stuff like that happens all the time. Not just in the ticket office, but maybe concessions have something, or the in-game entertainment, the video board, something goes wrong. So it's working with each department person, making sure that we find a solution as fast as we can, but make it as right as we can as well.
What is the game day traditions like for the Houston SaberCats?
Traditions are a big rugby thing, and culture and traditions. And so that's probably one of the differences too, where, in baseball, people might have their own traditions, but there's not an overarching one. The one thing I think is really cool with rugby, and we do it, we're not able to do it as much this year because of COVID, obviously, but the 2 teams get together and have interacting. And so that starts in youth rugby, goes all the way up to professional rugby, where, hey, we beat each other up for 80 minutes, but then after the game, let's have dinner, let's have a beer, laugh about the game and that camaraderie that you build. So we do that, like I said, in a normal year. And then, everything else, we're still new. So we're still building a lot of our fans have kind of taken it upon themselves to, when the kicker is kicking, either a conversion after the try or a penalty kick, every stadium is different and countries are different. In a lot of places around the world, you're silent. You let the other team's kicker kick in silence. But our fans have kind of decided on their own that, hey, that's not what American rugby will be. It will be, a loud, raucous crowd. So while we don't pump anything into this space system or music while the other team is kicking, our fans definitely get loud and make the guy hear about it.
Who are some of the teams that you play in your league?
Our league spans really across the country and up to Canada. So there are 12 teams that play right now. Dallas will be joining us next season to be the 13th. And the league is always growing. But just here in Texas, we have a team in Austin and us. And then we go from the West Coast with LA and San Diego and Seattle, all the way across to the East Coast where you've got, Boston, New York, DC, down south is Atlanta, NOLA, up into Toronto, Canada. And I know I'm missing, Utah. And I'm probably missing one more at least, but really all around the country.
Of course, what is the difference between the travel for rugby, where you said that you're in Utah, Canada, versus in the minor leagues and even in baseball? There aren't many teams in particularly Canada.
So we got 8 road games. And so for us specifically, this year, 2 of those are just bus trips to New Orleans or to Austin. The rest we fly, but we aren't Major League Baseball. We're not the NFL, so we're not flying private. We're flying commercial on American Airlines. And, most teams have that same, they might have 1 or 2 places they can drive. But in baseball, at least in my experience, in minor leagues, if you use the Airhogs as an example, we took a bus everywhere, and that included Canada. There was a team in Winnipeg, Canada, in our league, and we took a bus there. It was a sleeper bus, so they could sleep while we drove. That was a 24-hour bus ride. So it's different. Then with the storm, all the teams were in California, and a lot of those trips were just day trips. We would drive up each day and come back after the game. So it's much more of a flight league than it is a bus league.
What is something that you learn now that you didn't know before working in professional sports?
Yeah, I think things have been probably clarified for me definitely over the years in terms of, you see growing up, all working in pro sports, and you see all the big wig jobs, right? And you see the GM of the Yankees or the team president of the Packers. These are big time jobs. These are guys that are making millions of dollars. As you work through sports, as soon as you get into it, you realize, hey, that's obviously not everybody. But I think not on that side. If you just, I don't think people realize how much of an impact we make on people. And so it's not really about the sport, it's about the memories that people are making while attending games. And I think that's something that you overlook until you really work in it and see what impact that can have.
What advice would you give somebody looking to become the president of a professional sports team?
I think the best advice I can give would be, if you're working in sports already, just continue to try to grow, whether that be by going to your boss and asking, hey, where else can I help? Make sure that you're getting your job done first, right? But if you're getting your job done first, quietly go to your boss and just let him or her know, like, hey, I can probably do more and I'd love to learn this. would it be okay if I helped out in this category where I think I can make an impact, but also I'd like to learn. And then I think, people are afraid sometimes to ask people that they don't work with for advice. And so, just like you reaching out to me, a lot of people that are interns or looking to get in, if they do reach out to sports, they're reaching out to, younger people thinking, oh, they have more time, to talk to me. And there's no way the GM of a AAA baseball team will have time to talk to me, right? Where the reality is, I think it's different. I think the people in leadership positions will make time to talk and to help younger people, because I think sports is unique in that while our teams are competing against each other on the field, we're all kind of in it together as a sport, right? And as a business. And that sounds cliche. That sounds like, oh, kumbaya. But if I could help somebody else learn something, or just, maybe I don't even have the answer, but I can connect them to somebody that does have an answer. I think people in leadership positions are more likely or as equally likely to help because they're comfortable in the role, and they also want to help somebody, but also they get to talk about themselves and their path for 30 minutes. I think people love talking about themselves. So, just to sum that up, I would say, look for more and make a bigger impact on the job you're currently in. And don't be afraid to ask people in leadership roles, shoot for the moon too, right? Like, reach out to the GM of the Yankees, or he might not say yes, but, to use a football terminology, like you can always eat first and you can always check down, right? So if you called, Brian Cashman of the Yankees first and he tells you no, well, then you check down to me and you say, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast, right? You don't even need to tell me that Cashman said no. The people, you can always come down, right?
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Houston SaberCats at?
And I'm not great on social media. I do have a Twitter account that I just put some funny stuff on, and that's, I don't even know what it is, but I think if you just search my name. But the Houston SaberCats is Houston SaberCats on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. I guess my Twitter is JTO Money on Twitter only. Instagram, I don't really post, and Facebook's a private thing. So, but yeah, Houston SaberCats on all platforms.
Thank you again, JT, for your interview, and best of luck in your future with the Houston SaberCats as the president.
Hey, thanks, Brandon.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like,
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.